Nigeria's security policy is multifaceted. The national security strategy serves as a framework to deliver on the protection of citizens, promotion of national unity, and safeguarding the interest of the nation. However, activities of non-state actors have put to test the country's resolve and food security at risk. The big question, with the mostly rain-fed farming system being practiced in the country, do we still expect a bumper harvest at the end of the year considering the prevailing circumstances? The focus this week on the program is on insecurity and food sufficiency. My name is Leah Katung-Babatunde, and you're welcome to The Policy with Leah. We begin the business of the day from the trends table.
The 3 tiers of government have shared a total of 1.659 trillion naira being made 2025 Federation Account revenue at the June 2025 Federation Account Allocation Committee FAC meeting held in Abuja. The total distributable revenue comprised distributable statutory revenue of 863.895 billion naira, distributable value-added tax VAT revenue of 691.714 billion naira, electronic money transfer levy EMTL revenue of 27.667 billion naira, and exchange difference revenue of 76.614 billion naira. Companies' income tax, value-added tax, and import duty increased significantly, while CET levies, petroleum profit tax, oil and gas royalty, and electronic money transfer levy recorded decreases. Excise duty increased only marginally. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu early in the week emphasized the need for collective action and regional cooperation among African countries to achieve transformative development at the 4th annual meeting of the Africa Sovereign Investors Forum, ASIF. Represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, President Tinubu reaffirmed Nigeria's determination to lead the continent's economic transformation through targeted reforms and catalytic investment platforms, while also underscoring the administration's priority on regional collaboration and innovative capital mobilization. Held under the theme Leveraging African Sovereign Wealth Funds to Mobilize Global Capital for Transformative Development, the gathering brought together sovereign wealth funds, institutional investors, and policymakers from 17 African nations, supported by strategic partners such as China Investment Corporation and Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. The National Pension Commission, PENCOM, has told the head of service that it is working on modalities for the establishment of a gratuity scheme in line with Section 44A of the PRA 2014 for retiring employees of the federal government treasury-funded MDAs. Director General of PENCOM, Ms. Oluwaran, disclosed this when she paid a visit to the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Mrs. Didi Esther Wilson-Clark. She said it is estimated to cost the federal government only about 30 billion naira per annum if retiring federal employees are paid 100% of their last gross annual remuneration, an intervention to improve their welfare. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, says it has introduced time-bound measures for a small number of banks still completing their transition from the temporary regulatory support provided, mostly in response to the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, as part of its ongoing efforts to strengthen the banking system. A statement by CBN's Acting Director, Corporate Communications Department, Hakama Sidi Ali, described it as a broader sequence strategy to implement the recapitalization program announced in 2023. To support a smooth transition, she said the CBN has allowed limited time-bound flexibility within the capital framework consistent with international regulatory norms. Nigeria generally maintains risk-based capital requirements that are significantly more stringent than the global Basel III minimum. The Debt Management Office, DMO, says it plans to issue a 50 billion naira green bond aimed at supporting the federal government's environmental sustainability initiatives. Director General of the DMO, Patience Oniha, who made the disclosure, explained that the new issuance is part of the government's broader strategy to mobilize funds for projects that address climate change and promote a greener economy. She said it is intended to deepen the market, attract more environmentally conscious investors, and finance projects in sectors that support environment.
Next is our policy conversation on food security. The carnage in Benue State has again brought to the fore the devastating implications of insecurity. The senseless killings in agrarian societies is not limited to Benue State alone, but what makes this one particularly alarming is the number of those affected and the destruction that followed. Now, this is the peak of planting season. Mokwa has happened already. Over 200 souls there as well were perished, got perished by flooding waters, and the numbers of those missing are in their hundreds. NIMET is predicting 15 states are prone to floods this year. Are we ready? And what next? Dr. Yusha'u Aliyu is a fellowship doctorate at the Institute of Professional Economists and Policy Management here in Abuja, the nation's capital, and together we shall examine the economics of insecurity and food production. Doctor, it's nice to have you join me for this conversation.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. For starters, when we look at the continuous crimes in farming communities, one is tempted to ask, who are the gainers and who are the losers?
To look into gains is more or less a dream, but the losses is being counted every single minute in Nigeria. And it started long ago. President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan called the situation systemic failure. And if you have systemic failure in securing lives, properties of citizens, then the statehood question may arise, because the essence of having a state is to secure the environment, secure the inhabitant, and secure their wealth. And if that is being jeopardized, it means that there is a lot of questions to be answered and a lot of theories to be developed so that we can have a system that is working, a system that is accountable, and a system that will be appreciated.
Why has this problem defied solutions year in, year out?
Because of the multiplicity of our problems, not multiplicity of our civilizations. The problems, political, economic, and social, these are the main things that have been disturbing Nigeria a little bit after independence, 1960. But before 1960s, all these political, economic, including socials, were highly protected by the colonialists, because the problem they had before established colonialism was to fight against all those predicaments. And when they succeeded, they stabilized the system and then evacuate as necessary as possible what has developed their economy under Industrial Revolution. But immediately after taking independence, we begin to ask questions on our political participation, political ground, economic ground, as well as social ground. People want to be identified in the society by their richness. People want to be dignified by their societies, by the types of hypocrisy against others. So it has become an asset instead of liability. And today, the consequences can be seen everywhere. There is mistrust between people that have existed for over 1,000 years, people that have existed with all social embodiments together. But suddenly, because of the changing global system and inability to adapt to the speed at which the system is looking for, we are making backward steps instead of forward steps. And that is why you find poverty increasing, social insecurity increasing, a lot of vices increasing, and the political class also are showing double standard in certain situations in attending to these problems. And at a certain level, the complexities of our social structures will include religious. People just use the background and propagate what is not. And at the end, you find a situation where people will be misguided. And in some cases, the same religious institution will now appear to have an amnesty to criminals, while it is specified in the religion the content at which a criminal is to be attended. So these are some of the things that we failed to exploit, and now it is exploding day after day.
So looking at the bigger picture now, what will be the implications for food security?
Leah, you have asked something which our politicians fail to understand, citizens fail to understand. We are in a global village. We fail to have a very converging policy and our trading policy first. And then we fail to also look into the exigencies of agricultural produce. And we fail to also take into cognizance the land ownership structures which determine the type of land to be used for ABC. And it also goes to a situation where we fail to even understand the percentage of arable land that is available to us that will now make us to make that availability for production purposes. Let me take us to a broader sense. The Global Food Security Index of 2022, where 113 countries were surveyed based on 4 factors: availability, affordability, safety, and quality. When you put these ones, who are those that were able to come first? Finland, Ireland, Norway, France. There is no African state that was able to make up to 50th position. Nigeria is 107 out of 113 nations in terms of availability, affordability, safety, and quality. So when you now understand your position in the global village, then you will now understand that you are shortchanged. Whoever that will come and tell you that we have what it takes to make us food secured, you know that when you take that rating, you understand that you are far, far backward. How do you understand that? People always look at food in the market. When you look food in the market, of course we have major markets, but we fail to look at income grouping of the consumers. And we also fail to look into not only income grouping, purchasing power parity. That is the price at which we are purchasing goods that we are eating. If you take the consumption of just 2 liters of water in Nigeria and compare to a nation, probably in North America, at what price, with what level of income, that is what determines. And at the same time also, we fail to look at not only that our position in terms of production, no, in terms of income stratification, and in terms of availability of the product nationwide. We always look at thinking that we can produce, not knowing that we don't even have the capacity, because we have been using a method of production which is not going to give us any prosperity, because we are using labor intensive. Other economies are using capital intensive. And that is why our policymakers, most of the time, they say, all of us should go back to farm. It's wrong. We don't have to be pilot, all of us. We don't need much investors to have spent. Only 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4 investors were able to produce capacity not only for Nigeria, but capacity for the entire world. That is the type of structure we need to have in our production line of our agri output. And then the input. What type of seedlings? What type of grazing farms do we have? What types of value chain do we create? What type of consumption pattern we created between rural and urban areas? So it's a big challenging issue which ought to have been studied, looked into, and then drive policies that will give positive prosperity for the general economy.
So really, considering all these factors now, what do you think should be the line of action to be taken by government at all levels, talking about the federal and the subnationals, because the entire country is affected?
Economics start from a household. What is the size of your family? What is the size of my family? What is the level of income of your family? What is the level of income of my family? And then how can we determine our consumption pattern? and what is the best bundle of a good that we consume. Let me give you a good example. Leave the northern part, leave the southern part, leave the eastern part of Nigeria. Come to the middle belt. It is called the food basket of the nation. It's not just a rhetoric to say it's a food basket. This is a place where you have arable land, hardworking people, planting everything, and then having the best weather and vegetation. And at the same time, food is cheaper there because nearly in each and every family, they have to produce what to eat. And also, they have proximities to market to get other relative goods to substitute others. But unfortunately, we fail to define that advantage. The definition of that advantage, first, to know the type of land that exists, either it is tropical ferruginous, tropical ferrilitic, what is the nature of agric that is going to yield result, and who are those to determine the land allocation, and who are those to keep the quality and the quantity of that land safe. These are things that make production more visible, that makes it more important to all economies, and that is why today in Nigeria you find a situation where farmers are taken out of their farmland and you expect productivity, and also you go and block your borders and say that, no, we must. That theory does not exist. It's a very, very wrong theory. If today we choose that policy, that what we don't even have, we must produce it to consume it, so we can shut down our aviation industry until we produce. We can also shut down our automobile consumption until we produce. Or we can shut down all cameras production so that we can have television in Nigeria. If you take that option, you are not going to get it right, because there are international division of labor. There is comparative cost advantage theories as regard to trade, and there are absolute cost advantage with regard to trade. If you want to amplify your own productive power, first of all, you have to design a policy, and you have to improve in the system. And by improving in the system, not only an aspect of it, but holistic. Meaning that if you want to boost agriculture, you have to change production technique from labor intensive to capital intensive. Russia has taken that advantage. Ukraine has taken that advantage. That is why when the Ukrainian war began, the entire world began to cry. Why? Because wheat supplies is going to have hitches. How? Because they have maximized the advantage based on absolute cost advantage and invest it and then expand and then look at areas of efficiency. You cannot do all at the same time. But Nigeria is very blessed to have all vegetation zones, from the tropical forest to Sahara Desert. You have component of what can grow, what you can maximize, and what you can take to the market locally and internationally. But it was a big blow when former Minister of Agriculture last year celebrating 1 year of Tinubu's administration, which I was a discussant there, and he was also a discussant there, and he came to tell the world that even out of 100% of the arable land in Nigeria, we are not utilizing 10% of it.
So what are we fighting for?
We thought we have the capacity we don't have. You can see farmland, no road network to get in there. You can see farmland, but insecure. You can't go there. You can see farmland, but land policy did not allow you for mechanization. I would choose to farm, I would choose to keep the land, I would choose to do whatever I like with the land. So unless we change and take options that have been used by Mao Zedong to change agriculture in China, aspect of agriculture that was used by the Asian tigers. First of all, there was an attempt to create special economic zones. These special economic zones, it was to serve as just an investment laboratories where if you have advantage in producing yam, Nigeria made a mistake to introduce yam to the world. and we don't have the capacity to feed the local market. So we cannot, if we don't have the capacity to feed the local market with a very high population, then we cannot feed the world. So if you are to introduce concept that you think will add value to the economy, you introduce a concept that will give you food first. Our forefathers, from the food basket of the nation Benue to the entire world, we have what we call in Hausa rumbu. We construct it. The entire house has food for a whole 365 days. And they go to market on a regular basis to find things that can just augment, not as food. So now, this one doesn't exist. Leah is in Abuja, has to go to market every day. Myself, I have to go to market every day. In a nutshell, we must do something about that economic zones. Rice production is a shame. If you check the U.S. production of rice, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. Even the quality, the type of rice you consume in Nigeria 50 years back, it is named buzagadi, because it's a rice that when you are milling it, you milled it locally, you get firewood, you get basin, you start heating it, and then you spray on ground. You cannot compare with the rice that is produced in Thailand, which it was planted on a canoe. It was harvested on a canoe and then milled also through the canoe. There is no any associated land or sand that comes close to it. 50 years back in Nigeria, our staple food, rice, is not included in general. One misconception that people are being bullied, so to say, that you cannot import rice because you have the capacity. Who told you you have the capacity by this index? You are 107. Who is the largest producer of rice in the world? Google will tell you. China. Who is the second largest producer of rice? Google will tell you United States of America. Then who is the biggest importer of rice? Mr. Google will tell you China. And who is the second importer of rice? It will tell you United States of America. Why? Because they need to have their silos filled up. They need to prepare the market. They need to prepare for exigencies. And that's why you must do it. First, what you need to do, when you understand the arable land, you understand the species you are going to take, you understand your specialization, you have to also understand the quantity that you are looking for. But let me take us back, Leah. The first food security in the world, it was done by Joseph, the ruler of Egypt. In a dream he saw. And then he now consulted Joseph, who was in prison then. And he told him, he said, I dreamt of fat 7 camels. Later I come dream of lean 7 camels. What does that mean? But if you are to succeed, always ask the right people, right questions. He now said, who can interpret this? They said, Joseph. Where is he? He says, he was one a Jew from that was caught as a slave, and he's lying in the prison. He said, call him. He didn't look at it. He says, somebody low. Okay, look, you have to prepare. There is going to be 7 years of bounties. And there is also 7 years of famine. He says, what do I do? He said, no, you go into production the first 7 years. Every year you produce a silo in 27 zones and you keep some. That is how the first food security started in the world. And no border was closed, because that was, had it been the border was closed, the family wouldn't have been there. So I don't know why we choose to even go beyond a human concept, to be thinking brutal.
We're looking at already, we can't predict the direction where our food inflation is going to go, because we're in June already. We're being realistic here. Numbers don't lie. So how would that affect the economic outlook for the year?
Yeah, it will be negative, because of the fact that the better the stability of prices without inflation, the better your income, the better your consumption, and the better prosperity of the GDP. But when inflation is putting head consuming, reducing your powers in the market. That is reducing your purchasing power, reducing your consumption, reducing the efficiency of the GDP. And once you have that one, it goes negative. No matter what narrative you are going to change, you judge yourself with your income, what your income can do. These are things that are practical in the whole world.
I must sincerely thank you, Doctor, for making out time for this conversation and for sharing your thoughts with me.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful.
We move on to our education segment, Simplify These. As always, we take you to the local commodities market from there. For more on rates from markets across the country, do well to log on to our sister website. It is www.marketnigeriatv.com. We have all the market details and more there for you. And until we come your way again same time next week, do not forget to always follow us on our various social media platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is at Saban Media Services. Leave your comment, questions, and suggestions. We value feedback to help us serve you better. Be safe out there, and God bless Nigeria.